Patience serves as a protection against wrongs, as clothes do against cold. For if you put on more clothes as the cold increases, it will have no power to hurt you. So, in like manner, you must grow in patience when you meet with great wrongs, and they will then be powerless to vex your mind.
I love that one.
Yeah. Guess who is the source of that quote?
I don't know. I've used it before, but I don't remember.
Have you
Is
really?
it Elizabeth Elliot?
No. It's Leonardo da Vinci.
No way.
I know. That's kind of, it came on one of these little cards that there's a store here in Dripping Springs that sells these. It has these neat little quotes. And I look at that and go, really? Did Leonardo da Vinci say that? Whoever said it, I like it. It was a good one.
Interesting.
So welcome to Looking Up.
That is a good one.
It is a good one. Welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. We're glad that you've joined us today. We're going to have a good discussion in a little while. Not really related to that quote. It'll be something else. And it's going to be maybe a little bit different today than normal. But it is cold outside, although we're going to have some sun, and in our hearts there's sun because we get to be together sort of online in this way, and looking forward to chatting together and increasing our little community of women, although it's a growing community. I'm glad for that. So anyway, what's going on over there with you guys?
Well, you mentioned the sun. Today it's a little overcast, but we've had several days in a row of sunshine, and temperatures getting a little bit above freezing. So
a little bit, like in the 40s.
Yeah,
it's not warm.
No, it's not. But with the sun out, it feels way better than zero. So I've been going around singing, having a heat wave, tropical heat wave.
What is that from? Is that an Ellis thing?
I don't know. You always ask me questions I don't know the answer to.
It's okay. But I don't know is a good answer.
We are celebrating Dale and Janelle's birthday tonight. We're going to have some homemade pizza and some cake and some good times. And tomorrow our men's retreat is starting with Mike Vestal, and I get to help Dana in the kitchen. Yeah. So got a fun, full, fruitful, fellowshipy weekend.
You're doing that preacher thing. You might be living with a preacher. Yeah.
I might be living with a preacher who loves alliteration.
Yeah, he does it well.
Well, he does it. Just kidding, Neil. Just kidding.
Yeah. It's one of the times you wish he wouldn't listen, right?
Yeah, there's more than one time. Like today's topic is one of those times. We're going to be talking about, I guess I'll let you say what we're going to be talking about. But sometimes I think about it ahead of time. I know Neil's going to be listening to this, probably use it against me.
Yeah. I'm sure he only means it to help.
I feel like today's going to be a little bit of show and tell because I have some throughout the week, I thought, oh, I'm going to share this and I want to show a picture of it. Oh, I'm going to share this and I want to talk about it. So,
well, please share.
None of it is important at all. They're just silly little things. Okay, the first one, Neil brought me these things from HEB from his trip to Texas. And I don't know if you've ever tried them. Wait.
Sorry.
Are you a dark chocolate or a milk chocolate girl?
I like milk better.
Okay. These are turbinado sugar and sea salt almonds covered in dark chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like that. It says HEB right there on the package. And they're not smooth. They're knobby.
What do you mean? Show us one.
Okay. It almost looks like a chocolate raspberry. See that?
Oh,
see the knobbiness of it?
Yeah.
These things are so addictive. So the first time I ate one, I know I moaned. I mean, I made horrible noises. And so in the evening, I keep telling myself, I'm just going to eat two. Little treat. Just going to eat two. Mm-hmm. Like 8 later, I'm going, stop it.
Well, at least you can't get them easily.
Exactly. And I'm starting to feel that whole, I should just eat them all out in one fell swoop so they're not in my house anymore. Just get them out of here. But if you live in Texas or have an HEB or have a friend who lives near an HEB, if you don't, make a friend in Texas who lives near an HEB. And so that
Is that a hint for me to send you some more?
No, please don't. Please don't. No, I
What
cannot.
Is turbinado? Is that a kind of sugar?
It is a kind of sugar, but I don't know what kind of sugar.
I wonder if that's what makes it knobby.
So it's dark chocolate, almonds, turbinado sugar, and sea salt. That's the ingredients. Okay. But, oh man, they're so good.
So I wondered if he made a trip to HEB or 10.
You wondered.
Yeah, I knew he would
He
go,
always
but
he always comes up with a reason. Well, I needed to stop at HEB because
mm,
I'm
needed
like,
coffee.
because you love HEB. That's why.
He's so funny about HEB, but I mean,
Funny
it's
about
true.
Texas. A Texas, he's like a Texan who never actually lived there, because
Yeah.
he always enjoys a trip to Texas. He always does certain things, gets the
Barbecue.
barbecue, goes to HEB. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
it's just that part of Texas, the hill country area that he loves so much. But
Well, he knows because of the barbecue joints, and I'm sure he hit up several of them while he was here.
yeah, and y'all are there. So there's lots
Well,
of
there's
reasons.
that.
There's that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did get to have lunch with him and Hiram, or is it he and Hiram? Him. Got to have lunch with him.
Hmm.
That's the
Hmm.
way you figure it out, if it makes
Hmm.
sense that way, because we
Right.
wouldn't have lunch with he.
Hmm.
Yeah, we did have lunch with him one day. Went to Hot Dottie Burgers.
Yeah, I've been there with
That's
you.
pretty good. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Hmm.
that was a different location, but we did go there. We have a picture in front of that place.
I
Forgot
think
about
it's
that.
our one of our pictures somewhere on the
Hmm.
YouTube channel or something.
It used to be on the Facebook big thing at the top, but then we changed it when we took the picture of you and me at your house with the when we did the live podcast.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah. So focal point was last week. It threw me off the whole time because normally it is Sunday through Thursday, but this time it was Wednesday through Sunday.
Wow, so they
And
changed everything about it.
yeah, and I'm not sure why they put it at the end of the week, but the whole time it just totally threw me off. But it was a great week. They had really good turnout. I think it was a good change as far as the time of the year, maybe because
Hmm.
May is such a busy month with
Hmm.
end of school things and graduations and all, but it was really good. And there was some excellent lessons. And I think I could not find them for mom on the live stream, but I know they recorded them. So I'm sure they'll be available. If they're not already, they'll be available to watch. And there was lots of Bear Valley alumni there that we got to see. And we had little mini reunions. A couple of times we went to, what's the Mod Pizza? Do you like Mod Pizza? Have you been there?
I've been to Mod Market. Is that
No,
the one
it's
you're
a
talking?
different one.
Oh,
You would
no,
like it
I
because
don't.
it's like kind of like this is a side note. It's like a Subway for pizza. So you go through the line and they build your
Oh,
pizza and they have all these toppings. Anyway, we went there with Garrett and Michaela Aiken and Brian and Sage and who am I forgetting? Maybe it was just them. But
the
anyway,
balances were there, weren't they?
they were there at our house
Oh,
because the next
okay.
day we had the Balances and the Sawyers and
Hmm.
um the McClartys. Anyway, it was fun to see lots of not McCarty. McCarty is here in San Marcos.
Bear
Bear
Valley.
Valley people
Hmm.
that we just don't get to see very often. And it was good. We drove back and forth. We had house guests. And so it was a hectic week, but it was a good week too. I always enjoy that kind of thing.
Neil enjoyed it. He took some notes. He even sent them to the family text.
Hmm.
Notes from various sessions that he sat in, and so
Good.
he enjoyed his time there.
Yeah. And I wanted to tell everybody, dread telling everybody this, but Alice, I've talked about Alice for months now, and she has a rare form of blood cancer, and she had a stem cell transplant in August of last year. And I've mentioned her recently because we went back and forth to Houston a couple of times for her to have a bone marrow biopsy, and they have found the cancer cells again in her bone marrow, which means that the donor cells were not able to overcome her own. She told me that the first bone marrow biopsy after her transplant was 100% donor cells, but this last one was 88%. So that means that her it's just a wicked, strong form of cancer that is winning
Oh,
over the donor.
overpowering the donor
Yeah.
cells. Mm.
So she's going to have another stem cell transplant, which
Mm.
um, I just ache for her because it was such a
Mhm.
brutal process to begin with, and then to think about having to do it all over again. I don't know. She's every time I've talked to her since then, has a positive outlook and says she's just ready to get it beat and get it over with and move on with the next step of life instead of being so focused on recovery. But we just ask for lots of prayers. I worry about her. I worry about her, of course, physically, but just the idea of having to go through what she's already been through is so daunting to me. But she's going to do that. They're excuse me, I've got the frog today. They're having to do some testing to see if she's got certain things that they need to take care of before they start with the chemotherapy that they use to kill again all of the cells that are in her body. But the interesting thing too is that I don't remember if I told everybody this at the very beginning. When they did the bone marrow donor search, it's pretty rare to find a perfect match, but they found two.
Wow.
And so when I look back on that, I think God isn't taken by surprise in any way in this, like nothing. I mean, he's not taken by surprise in any way, but they're going to use, hopefully, this second donor will agree and they will use the second donors to try again to see if that will overcome the cancer. So prayers for my friend. Her name is Alice Stone. Her husband is Paul. She has 3 kids. They're all grown. They're married. She has grandkids. But it's just, I know cancer has affected every single person. We all have someone we know and love that has been affected by it. But this is kind of closer to home in a lot of ways for me because none of my parents, Grady had a form of cancer, but that's not what killed him. They told him when they found it that it would be something else, and it was something else that ended up. But it's just hard to see people suffering that you love. I know you know that on a personal way too. So pray for Alice.
We definitely will keep praying for her, and everybody in our Looking Up group, we can remind them to be praying.
Yeah. In other news, so we had focal point Wednesday to Sunday. Sunday morning, I got a call or a text from my middle son, Jake, that lives in Fort Worth. And he said, well, the gist of it was he was waving the white flag. They needed some help. And he had a business trip that he had to leave on Tuesday and be gone overnight. And, Alyssa, they have a 3-year-old and a 14-month-old and a newborn. And she just needed extra hands. And her mother was sick. Oh, sorry. Gonna have to just cough it out. Her mother was sick. And anyway, the kids ended up having croup and were sick and she just needed help. So we made a real quick trip down there. Couldn't go on Monday, but we went on Tuesday and we ended up coming back last night so that we could record today. And it was fun. The kids they were better, I think, by the time we got there, but it's just, you can imagine Emily's going to have this soon too with 3 under 3. And the number of hands needed to handle all of the things that are going on and the naps and the bedtimes and the getting up at night. And so we were responsible for Darcy, the 14-month-old, overnight, and she only woke up once. So
that's nice.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
And I think Alyssa had to get up more than that with Nolan, but it was sweet. They keep Darcy in a little small space that's pitch black. And they told me, so when she wakes up, do this and this, and you might want to sit down and rock her. There's a rocker in there. So I get up when she needed me, and I went in there, and it is pitch black. I mean, pitch black in this little space. And I pick her up, and I'm trying to feel my way around, and I'm looking for a rocker, and I'm thinking, I don't know where I'm supposed to sit down. I can't find anything. And right about that time, Darcy just decided she wasn't sure who had her, I think. And she just leaned back over towards her little bed. And so I just put her down and she went back to sleep. I think she was like, well, I don't know what's going on.
You don't know what you're doing. I'd rather be back in bed.
Yeah. And so that was helpful. So anyway, we just got back last night. It was fun to see them. Good. Nolan's growing. So yeah.
Well, that was sweet that you were able to do that.
It was. So you have more show and tell?
Well, speaking of Emily, we were able to celebrate Rich's 2nd birthday, which is crazy that he's already 2 years old. And then I also went to spend a day with my sister. And so my sister and me and my mother were all trying to learn watercolor. So we did some painting together, and I brought what my sister and I did together. Hang on. We did another one of those. I think I showed last time the card that I made that had the little fun birds on it.
Yeah.
So we did another one of those.
That is adorable.
Yeah, because they're easy and they're fun, and you can actually feel good about what shows up on your paper.
Mhm.
I can't remember if I showed you these last time. I tried some of these like floral
I haven't seen that.
type things. I shared this one on social media. My sister and I did these birds together.
They're so
also.
cute.
And
Are you looking
then
at a picture and copying, or are you just
this
using your
is
imagination?
a tutorial that we watched on YouTube.
Okay.
So I was at my sister's house and we had our little, she had everything organized, as you can imagine. A little table set up, the fireplace going, the tutorial up on the big screen in front of us, you know. So we're just trying to follow. We'd pause it every now and then. Hold on, you know, let us catch up. And then I did. This is my favorite one. I did this one. I think this is beautiful. The one I shared. The flowers.
That is so you.
My little daisies, yeah. But then this week I tried a couple of my first landscapes. They're awful. Like this one.
That is not awful.
Well, I was feeling really good about it until I drew in my little dead trees, and it just they didn't look good. So that one was a bummer. And then I was trying to do a mountain scene for Neil because his birthday's coming up, and not really.
I like it. I honestly do, and I like the one that you just showed before that. I really do. I don't know why you're being so critical.
I'm making bookmarks.
Yeah.
So this will be cut into the different bookmarks, little flower ones to tuck into life and favorite orders, you know?
I think you found your new talent.
Well,
you're enjoying it too, I can tell.
I'm enjoying it. That's what's so surprising. I thought it'd be a little more stressful, but it's actually fun. It's actually enjoyable. It's definitely a huge learning curve there, and everybody has kind of their own style, you know, and but it is fun.
Okay, so when we have a looking up retreat, Christy is going to have to come and do like a lesson. That'll be our craft activity.
Yeah.
We'll get her to let us know what kind of supplies we need and then lay them out and everybody can paint.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't do stained glass because that would be too much, but
that would be very expensive.
And I think that would most people would flop on their first one, but a watercolor, I think that would be something that would be fun and successful. So
yeah, and they're, you know, relatively quick, especially a little simple one like that. So I was going to share something funny. I was at a bridal shower for Lindsay and Ian. They're a couple here that's getting ready to get married. We were at their shower on Sunday, and Holly Bauman and Hillary Hammer were sitting next to me, and Holly's daughter Emery crawled into Hillary's lap. Well, one of the gifts that Lindsay opened was like a fruit basket thing. And so Hillary starts asking Emery, you know, she's like, so what's your favorite fruit? Is it strawberries? Is it blueberries? And I said, is it bananas? And she thinks about it and she goes, chocolate chips.
Okay, yeah. I'm with her.
And so this whole row back here, everybody who heard her answer just cracked up. It was so cute. We're like, that's what we all really feel deep down in our soul. You know, but
if chocolate were a fruit, I'd be so healthy.
Yes. I think the last thing I'll show you is I did my nails.
Yeah, I noticed earlier they look like first when I saw one of them, I thought it was black and I thought you were making fun of Neil.
No, I don't ever do my nails for a couple of reasons. I just prefer the look of natural nails. And the second reason is they never last long. You know, I'm always using my hands and especially washing milking equipment. It's so heavy that it's always getting chipped and stuff. But what I know is that Neil prefers manicured nails. And so I finally decided to order some more Color Street. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
And I used to use them before, and then I stopped because I felt like they were damaging my nail bed. And like they would, after using it maybe 5 or 6 times, I noticed that my nail bed felt like it was dry or cracked or something.
Yeah.
But then I started, this time around, I looked it up, and what I realized is I was damaging my nail bed because when it starts coming off, it lasts about a couple weeks. When it starts coming off, I start chipping at it. And that's what was damaging my nail bed, because when I was doing that, I was also pulling off like that top layer of my nail. So So I learned it wasn't the color street that was doing it. It was me.
How do you get those off?
Regular polish. It's nail polish. I brought it to because I was talking to Jennifer Harrison about it last night, and she'd never used it. She was like, "Are those press-on nails?" But so it comes in packs like this.
Mm-hmm.
Those little strips come in different sizes, and you peel off the protectant and you press it onto your nail. It's like a thin strip of polish
Mm-hmm.
that you press onto your nail and shape it around it and file it in place. And then it adheres to your nail. It is polish. That's what it is. So the beauty of it is it goes on dry. So you don't ever have to worry about messing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And all you do is you make sure you don't get your nails wet for about an hour after you do
Mm-hmm.
it. And I order mine from Jeannie Gilpin. And,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you order them, it's like buy three, get one free kind of a thing. And so when mine showed up, Neil was looking through the colors. I ordered ones I know he'd like this red.
Red.
And I ordered this kind of hot pink
Mm-hmm.
color. But then I also ordered the color that I'm wearing now. It's kind of like it's really like a deep midnight blue,
Put them
sparkly kind
closer
of thing.
because they're sparkly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're sparkly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah,
And then
I see
I
'em.
ordered this one is also sparkly. Oh, you can't really see that
Yeah,
color.
I can see.
But when Neil saw him, he was like, ugh, sparkly. Ugh, that surprises me, But then when I actually put him on the other day, he's like, I really like that. And then everybody at church, this is how I never do my nails. Everybody at church was like, oh, I love your nails.
Yeah.
It's like, but what has changed is I've gotten older. And so my natural nails just aren't as pretty as they used to be. That, they're
Mm-hmm.
they're aging with me.
Yeah.
So they need covered also.
I just don't ever do anything with them. I keep them like I clip them, but yeah, probably should
Yeah,
try
I
something.
never have. And Neil, he'll never tell me what to do, like with my hair, whatever makes you happy, and
Mhm.
but he has gently hinted that his preference would be for me to get my nails done. I've never in my life gone to get a manicure.
Yeah.
I've had pedicures, but I've never gone to get a manicure. But this I like because it's really easy to do for me, even to use my non-dominant hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy. And the best part about it is you actually get twice as much because the nail strips are so long. I can do two nails with one. So when
If you
I
don't have
do,
long nails.
yeah, when I do with this index finger, and I'm filing it off, I turn around and I use the other half on this index finger. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually get twice the amount that you're supposed
Cool.
to in one of these things. So
Yeah.
that's why I said I had all these little random things today. Chocolate covered almonds and nail polish and watercolors. That's my
Yeah.
little. I feel like a little kindergartner show and tell. Look at my nails.
They're so cute. I'm so proud of you.
Uh,
Well, before you may have more things you want to share, I was just going to give
yeah.
a little update on this medicine that I'm taking because I haven't said anything about it since that very first day that I mentioned it, which has been
Mhm.
several months. And I've lost 11 pounds. And
Congratulations.
well, it's very slow, which has surprised me. I thought it would be faster. But you have to start on the lowest dose and then work your way up, find the sweet spot where it's effective without making you feel bad. And it's just, I feel like it's taking more. I don't have any idea what the normal dose is for women my age or weight or whatever, but I haven't had any side effects that I know of. It just makes me, for lack of a better word, this is what I told my doctor. There's just sometimes that I feel blah, like, ugh, no, I don't want anything. I don't want to eat anything.
Mm.
But it hasn't really taken away. This is what I was really hoping for. It hasn't taken away that food noise. Maybe a little bit. What I would like is for just to not want a snack. And I probably want less than I normally do. But I also know that since I've started, we went on a trip, several trips.
Mhm.
There was Thanksgiving, there was Christmas. There's just been a lot of things that have kind of been not a normal. I say that, and that's just normal life for us, I guess. But I don't mind it being slow. I guess it's fine because usually when you do something slow, it tends to be more lasting. But I eat less. That's the thing. Is I still eat what I normally eat, but I eat less. Like I'm done after
Mhm.
half of what I would normally eat. So I feel like if it hadn't been Christmas time and I haven't been hostessing and all that kind of stuff, I probably would have maybe.
Yeah.
Plus, I started with the semaglutide and then changed to the tirzepatide, which is the 2 GLP hormones. And I had to start over again at the beginning with the low dose and work my way up. So anyway, I found a message in my Facebook messages that I didn't realize I had because it went to that other, I guess we weren't friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she had asked how it was going, and I just realized I never have said anything about it since that first time. So I'm still doing it, still think it's effective. It's just kind of slow, but slow is okay. I know that.
So when did you start?
With the tirzepatide, I think it was mid-October.
Okay, so
3 months.
3 months.
October, November, December, January. 3 months.
So
Which
that's almost a pound a week though. That's good.
Yeah, I still think it's pretty slow, but I'm okay with that. I just wish, you want to just drop 15 pounds a month. And some of the commercials you see will say that. But I also know that's not a super healthy way of doing it. So anyway, that's just kind of an update.
Okay.
Where I am.
Thanks for sharing that. I know a lot of women
Yeah.
are interested in that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have other things you want to share?
Nope, I'm done.
I don't have any things sticking out of my glasses, do I?
No.
So
you're
I
gonna
told
have to share
you,
the story.
Yeah. So at focal point on the very first night, which was Wednesday night, we only had one lesson that night. After the lesson, and after I had all talked to everyone before, and after, going and finding your seat, and then after the lesson, you start talking to people. John was standing near me and he kept looking at me and he kept pointing at my face, which, is an awkward thing because you're like, what? What is it? Is it a hair? Is it what is it? So I have these little nose pads on my glasses. You can see them. And it just keeps them from sliding down my nose. But one of them had twisted because they just stick on. And it twisted and it was sideways. So I had this nose pad. I don't know what else to call it. It sounds gross. A nose pad. It was sideways. And so it was sticking out of my glasses and I couldn't see it. And it was embarrassing. As I wonder how many people were looking at me like John was like, what is that on your face? I said something to Michelle Massey about it afterwards. She said, I just thought it was a zit pad. I'm like, what? What even is a zit pad? I don't know what that is.
That's worse, I think.
Yeah. So if you saw me and it looked like I had a booger on my nose, it was not. It was a nose pad. Just wanted to clear that up.
Don't be boorish.
Yeah. Can't help it. Sorry. So
there's always something, like you say, there's always something to keep us humble, right?
Keep us humble. Exactly. That's exactly what happened to me. I was embarrassed.
Aging keeps us humble.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that keep us
That's
humble.
a whole episode in itself.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Would not be very positive, would it?
Sure it would.
No, not. Like, why would we want to do that? Okay, so we ready to start topic?
We probably should, yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that this might be a little bit different because we try, don't we? We try really hard to keep our episodes positive and encouraging and all those things that our theme, Looking Up, is about. But sometimes there are things that hit us, and this one was one of mine, just things that I think really need to be talked about and that might be perceived as a little bit negative. But as we've all often heard, sometimes something negative is a positive thing. So we are going to talk about just some heart attitudes, some things that we show in our lives that are not helpful to us and that are not helpful to the people that we show them to or speak them to. I'm going to have a couple and Kathy's going to have a couple. But what, huh? What'd you say? You have one. Okay. So we're going to have 3. Mm-hmm. And my first one is criticism. And so I'm going to criticize us for being critical of others in certain situations. But what do you think? What pops up when you think about us being critical? Where are some areas that we tend to be critical? aside from being critical of ourselves, because that's a different topic. We've talked about that before. Not being critical of ourselves, but being critical of other people in situations. What do you tend to think of?
Marriage, marriage, first of all, because that's the person we live with and
Mm-hmm.
we're the closest to. And then I would say anybody in any kind of leadership position
Yeah.
typically gets heavy amounts of criticism, or anybody who's involved in organizing. I sound like I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
from a ministry perspective because I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody involved in organizing any events.
Mm-hmm.
We just came through the whole building process, and that,
Yeah.
choices made along with that can be criticized. So
Right.
lots of
Yeah.
different areas.
Yeah. I was trying to think of some different areas, and mostly it's other people's decisions, right? When
Right.
they've decided to do something a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we are critical of other people's parenting styles or lack of what we see as a lack of a parenting style.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when this is what's kind of sad to me, it's really sad, is when other people are trying to do something good for God and we're critical of it. And for whatever reason, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there are reasons behind why we are critical of other people, but all they're trying to do is something good. And maybe it's not the way we would do it, or maybe it's not the method or the mode, but we just sit back and we're critical of it and we find things to pick apart. We're nitpicky.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just was thinking that this is so unhelpful. It's unhelpful to me personally in my own attitude. When we're critical of others or we hear people being critical, it just keeps us in a certain mindset that is really unbiblical. So I was kind of digging into it a little bit in preparing for this, and I found this definition of criticism. It's when a complaint is expressed as a character flaw. I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
So when we have a complaint about someone, I guess this would be more of a personal thing since it's a character flaw. But if we have a complaint about it, it's like, this is what's wrong with you, rather than this is what could be done better. But even that, so I have a problem with. If we can't just accept what someone else is doing in their certain style and we're critical of it, that
Mm-hmm.
indicates that we have a heart problem ourselves. I saw this other definition. It's an expression of disapproval based on perceived flaws, faults, and mistakes. So there's that word perceived in there where, it's my opinion that we should do it this way, and you decided to do it that way. Therefore, you are wrong, or you're, um, hopefully it doesn't cross the line into accusing someone of doing something sinful when it's just a perceived flaw.
Mm-hmm.
But we probably both know, and others in the group that might be listening, someone who you just know that's who they are, is they're critical of people. They're critical of every situation. Uh, I don't don't want to, I'm obviously not going to say any names, but I'm just thinking of someone that just has that look, even has the look. And I know that about them is that they're sitting back and judging what someone else is doing, how they're doing it, what they're doing. And it's not a matter of sin, it's a matter of opinion. And this person is just very critical. And, it's just the picture of them is looking down their nose and just maybe not even saying much. They might be very quiet about it, but in a way that's almost worse because you know what's going on in their mind and their heart is that they're criticizing. And I just think that it's I have to be careful when I think about people like that because it makes me critical. And, this is another one of those things that we always say when we decide on a topic, it's because it's something that I struggle with. And I've heard you say that too. When we pick a topic, it's because you're struggling with it. And so when I say criticism and being critical, it's because I know that I struggle with this. So for any of you people out there that know me well, Kathy, and other people, you know that this is something that, it might not be so outwardly obvious. I hope not, but because you know me that I have a problem with being critical about things. Even if I try to do it kindly, and say, bless their heart, whatever, it's still being critical, right?
I love
It
them to
just,
death, but
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love them, but if there's a but in there, why can't we just stop and not be that way? Because I think it really indicates so much more about me than it does about that person that's trying to do something that's good. Or maybe it's not even that they're trying to do something that's good. It's just that they're living their life and they don't do it the way that I think they should do it, or they don't do it the way that I personally do it. And so therefore it's not the right way. And we've talked about that before. When you have an opinion, how do you, if we say this is what our family has chosen to do, but it's not for everyone else, how do you, that's just a hard line to me.
Mhm.
And so that's where I think that we struggle with being critical. So, what does it reveal? What do you think it reveals about my heart? Put you on the spot. Kathy, what is it about me that makes me critical? What does it reveal?
I don't want to answer that question because, uh, my husband, he's our number one fan, and he tends to listen to these
Our number one
episodes.
listener.
Yeah, and this is one of those that I know is going to come back to haunt me because he's going to be like, remember that episode when you talked about this and you said what criticism reveals about somebody's heart? And
That's not nice. That's critical.
no, you can't get past the pride and arrogance of it.
Hmm.
What it reveals, and it's kind of like no matter what we think we're pointing out, all it shows is that we have a much higher perception of ourselves and our thoughts than we do somebody else's.
Right.
And how I would do things, how I view this, how, I can't believe you couldn't even figure that out for yourself. To
Oh,
me, that's how it comes across. Probably not when I'm saying it, because I'm viewing the criticism from my own perspective and
mhm.
whatever I think I'm trying to accomplish with it. But when you hear somebody else doing it, isn't it clear?
Mhm.
And I mean, there's such thing as good criticism. I'm sure you're going to come around to
Sure.
that, but we know what we're talking about here, that critical, overly
Mhm.
critical spirit. And all it does is reveal somebody is just flat out arrogant,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
An elevated view of themselves and their own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
The
I was thinking
frog.
about when you said, we all know somebody, and I
Uh-huh.
was thinking about how it's when a person has a problem with it, and I'll just lump myself into that category, of course, but a person has a problem with it when, say, they come to visit your congregation, and then all of a sudden you're much more aware of every flaw.
Hmm.
Like maybe we didn't have our best song leader today.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't the best Bible class we've ever had. Maybe, oh, I wish so and so wouldn't have said, because you're like
On
viewing the
edge.
whole service
Hmm.
through this person, and they're like honing in on all those
Yeah.
mistakes. Or if I listen to a podcast that I think is beneficial, there's people that I would send it to because I know they'll appreciate it and they'll pick out the good. There's people that I wouldn't send it to because I know they wouldn't be able to get past this, or this,
Right. Yeah.
and it's just because it's that whole, I know what they're gonna not
Hmm.
be able to get past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, does that make you said if someone came to the service that day and you didn't have your best song leader, does it make you self-conscious or does it make you resentful that someone is critical? They're going to be critical.
I would say both.
Yeah. I tend
Mhm.
to fall more on it annoys me and makes
Mhm.
me kind of mad that someone's going to be that way rather than,
Makes
oh,
me defensive,
yeah.
but
So being around somebody that's that way, it's not a pleasant experience.
mhm.
That's the bottom line, right?
Mhm.
And when I know that about me, that I'm that way, I kind of feel like, John, he would he would know that I have this critical heart sometimes. It is something that I'm aware of and I try to fight. I really do feel like I have made some progress in this. I think it's a battle that is always going to be something that we're always going to fight. But it
Well,
just
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I shared with you what before we even hit record. I didn't even know I was going to bring this up in today's conversation about something that I ran across recently. And I'll have to, when I share it in the group, I'll look up who actually said it and how they said it. But the
Hmm.
gist of it was in marriage. Um, that's one that hits close to home for me. So I'll share that one. That, most of us would agree that when we look at our expectations of our spouse, they probably hit about 80% of those expectations realistically. But it's that 20% that we focus on. And in all those areas that we wish they would do things differently or not do, or come around to your way of thinking, or why can't you, fill in the blank. That's what we focus on, and that's what we criticize. And so we rob ourselves of our own joy and peace in a relationship for 20%.
Yeah.
Instead of letting that 20% go, being grateful for the 80%, working with it, promoting unity. Yeah. We do that to ourselves. And when we think about the 20% that we are disappointing others in or letting others down at, we don't want them to focus on that. We don't want them to be all that they see when they think of us, so why can't we extend the same grace to the people that are closest and dearest to us?
Yeah, very good point. I think that we are all about that 80% in ourselves.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And not the 20% that we need to correct. I mean, who knows what the statistic really is or the percentage, but yeah, we are very forgiving of ourselves, but so unforgiving towards other people, and so critical of the things that other people do, and not critical. Obviously, I know people have problems criticizing themselves, some worse than others, but we are forgiving of ourselves and not so much of other people. It just reveals such a lack of compassion in our own hearts and a lack of self-awareness, when we are sitting back and criticizing the effort that someone else is making. And, this is something that John says sometimes. If we get some criticism for something that we do, he'll just say, well, you're welcome to try to do it yourself. And, usually that's a private conversation that we're having about somebody thinks that we should do it this way. Okay, well, and he's not being unkind in the way he says it, although he probably feels it sometimes. But, here we've put this amount of work into whatever it is, and we've done this research, and we decided to do it this way. But if you think that you can do it better, then go for it. And that, it sounds a little snarky, but I think he really means it. Like, especially when we're trying to do something that is to, evangelize, or to anything that we do in our efforts for the Lord, we should be happy for other people trying other things too, because it's like Paul said, even, I don't remember where it is. I think it's in Philippians 2, maybe, but he says, some preach Christ out of the wrong motives. But he says, in this I rejoice. It doesn't, and that may be pulling from a different place.
The gospel's still being shared.
Yes, exactly. So even if we find something wrong with the way somebody does it, if the end result is a good thing, then why are we being critical about it?
I love how you pointed out the compassion aspect of it, that it shows a lack of compassion. And I think about that verse, when Jesus saw them, he was moved with compassion. Unlike us, Jesus sees everything when he sees people, and we see what we think what am I trying to say? We only see a limited view, we think we know everything, but we don't.
Right.
And we might see consequences or choices, and we're drawing our own conclusions, but Jesus sees everything, the hidden and the not so hidden, bad choices and things that probably could be criticized. And yet, when he saw them, he was moved with compassion.
Yeah. And even during very stressful periods of his life, think about after
loss.
Yeah, John the Baptist he had just been told about that. And I don't know the timeline. There could have been more time in between it, but the way it reads in one of the Gospels, he just found out about his cousin, John the Baptist, being murdered. And then here's all these crowds. And it says that he was moved with compassion. He looked upon them as sheep without a shepherd. And I think in a time like that, I just want to go crawl in a hole and have me time and just leave me alone because I need to mourn or whatever. And yet he, like you said, looked upon them with compassion. So that's a good point. So we have to fight this tendency that we have to focus on what we see as the failures of other people.
You're going to give us some tips, right? Because I have a pen. I'll write it right here
Yes.
on my hand if I need
Yeah,
to.
I do. I do. As a matter of fact, I do.
Number
That's
one.
intense. So, how do we fight the tendency to be critical? And I think that the first one is to recognize our own faults.
I'm
You're
skipping
writing
that
it
one.
down. You have none, right? Recognize our own faults. And when you look at the specks and the logs, Matthew 7 that talks about getting the log out of your own eye before you flick the speck out of someone else's. I
I
had
think this
read.
is the first time I've taken notes in our own podcast. Like literally writing down number one.
Well, so like I said, this is helpful for me. It was what I needed. I needed this. So I was reading an article that was kind of about this, about the specs and the logs. And I'm going to see if I can read some of it and skip over some of it because I think it was a transcription of a podcast. So it's got all the likes and the uhs and all that. So let me see if I can read this. He said Jesus' answer to the question of how not to be hypercritical about the speck in your brother's eye is to be deeply aware of the log in your own. He said, I don't think this means that the very thing you spot in the other person, which you think is a speck, is worse in you than in him. That doesn't work. What it means is that there's plenty about me before God and man that should disincline me to be quick to judge others for specks, because if I got the just judgment that I deserved, it would be devastating. And he goes on to say, you know that if God were to treat you with the same rigor that you're now treating another person, you'd be undone. And that got me. So if God was as critical about me as I am about someone else, I would be undone.
Can you repeat that last sentence?
If God were to treat you with the same rigor that you're now treating another person, you'd be undone. And I can send it to you, but
Yeah. Wow.
that hit me in the gut because with what judgment you judge someone else, God is going, or you'll be judged. I think that God will, and other people will judge you with that same amount. So if I'm critical, God will be critical of me, others will be critical of me. So the first one is to recognize our faults. Second one is to be thankful instead of critical. And I think this is a really something that I kind of try to do is when I feel my heart go critical towards someone, I have to stop myself and find 3 positive things about that person. And it really does work to discipline your heart and your mind and make yourself stop. And just to stop and say, okay, that may not have been the way I would do that, but number 1, they're trying to do something good. Number 2, just find 3 good things about that person or about that event or whatever it is and be thankful. And then a third one is to grow in love towards others. Pray for it. And we pray to see others as God sees them. In the passage, Ephesians 4:32, to be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving, just as God has also forgiven you. It made me, when I was thinking about this, it made me think of Cherie and her thankfulness journal that she mentioned in the roundtable, that she keeps one by her bed and every night writes what she was thankful for that day. And what always comes back to me when I think about that is what she said. She says, I don't want to forget. Because that's what we do. We forget about the things that we're thankful for. But if you keep a journal every day, you will not forget the things to be thankful for. And then this one, and then it'll be your turn. Surround yourself with people who are not critical. But to do that, I think.
How many people are going to unfriend me now?
No. But I think if we're going to try to surround ourselves with people who are not critical, that means that we really have to make so much more of an effort to be that person that's not critical. Because who wants to be around someone who's always looking down their nose and picking things apart? It just makes sense. If you want to be around other people who are not that way, then you're going to have to work on not being that way as well.
Well, here's the thing. In the moment, if you both are in agreement on the criticism, it feels good. Honestly, to the flesh, if you and I are together and we start talking about something and we're both like, yeah, can you believe it? If we start doing that, and it's really easy to do, especially as women, when we get together, we can do that. We can go down that road. But how do you feel on the other side of it?
Right.
You get together for coffee, you spend the time, yeah, and everything, we say, enjoyed it. Thanks. See you next time. And then you walk away. How do you feel the rest of the day? Was that in
Yeah.
any way uplifting? No. You just feel kind of grungy.
Yes. And I'm trying to find this quote.
It's not refreshing,
Okay.
as a little
Yeah.
nod to last week's episode.
Yeah, not at all. So this was in my focal point lesson was one of them was about friendship. And I found this quote by Abigail Dodds, and I forgot about it until you just said that. But it says, gossip and complaining provide cheap ways to intimacy, talking about friendship.
Mm-hmm.
They make friends feel close and bonded, but in the end, they remain crumbling foundations for friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, that's so true. Because if that's what your friendship is based on, gossip and complaining, or another word could be criticizing, it's a cheap way to intimacy. So, yes, you build a friendship based on that mutual critical spirit because you're both critical, because you're both gossiping, because you're both whatever.
Well, it's easy to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
it
easy
makes
to
you
find
feel
something to
good
criticize.
in the moment, makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
better, but it's a cheap way to intimacy, but it remains a crumbling foundation for friendship.
That's good.
So I thought that was good. Now I hope I can find my notes again where I was. Yeah, here I am. So a couple of passages, Isaiah 58, 9 and 10.
Love that one.
Then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry and he will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness.
Mm.
And if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in darkness and your gloom will become like midday.
So we
So,
shared that one last week, but not
mhm,
that first part. And it's really the contrast.
yeah,
You can point the finger or you can
mhm,
look for ways to refresh others.
right. But the fact that God will say, here I am, but there's an if after that. And one of them is if you
Mm-hmm.
remove the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness. And then, of course, James 3, um, verses 13 through 18. Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior, his deeds, and the gentleness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant and so lie against the truth, because that is not what the wisdom that comes from above. It's earthly, unspiritual, demonic. Where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there's disorder in every evil thing. So the James 3 context is so good talking about criticism. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be critical. Carla,
Okay.
stop being critical. All right, your turn.
I want to talk about being dismissive.
Yeah.
And I hope I can read my notes because I've now written all over them with your notes.
Sorry.
And the idea is feeling or showing as if something or someone is unworthy of consideration.
Mm.
So brushing somebody off, ignoring them, acting indifferent towards somebody. You're really not even putting in any effort to get to know somebody. That's a form of being dismissive. Finding someone lacking so that you dismiss them because they're not the same as you and your
Mhm.
thought or how you would approach something, or they're not worthy of your time. So I wanted to talk about that one because I think it's another one of those things that I might struggle with in various forms without realizing it, but some of the ways that that's manifested itself, you might hear that and go, I don't really think I have a problem with that. But here's how we play it out: interrupting or talking over someone,
Mm.
walking away from conversation. Have you ever been a part of a conversation and
Yeah.
then somebody else comes along and you kind of just like not interested anymore and you're like,
Hmm.
excuse me, or whatever, you just take off.
Yeah. In the middle of
Um,
someone talking.
yes, not greeting someone or even acknowledging their presence. Sarcastic remarks is a form of dismissiveness, and then eye rolling and sighing.
Mm.
Sometimes we don't say anything, we just kind of do the whole,
Yeah.
and we're signaling
Hmm.
whoever's with us about somebody else and what they're saying or doing. So that's a form of being dismissive. So I was thinking about, I think I recognize this more in others than I do in myself until I kind of dove into it a little bit. If you ever had a relationship with somebody that they don't really they're not really interested in what you have to say. If
Mm-hmm.
you start talking, they look like they just completely disengage, or
Yeah.
they interrupt you, or
Look at their phone or
yeah,
watch or whatever.
anytime you make a suggestion, it's going to be ignored,
Yeah.
in favor of their own or somebody else's or whatever. And they just make you feel like they see no value in you whatsoever.
Yeah.
That you are just not going to
Mm-hmm.
bring in anything to the table for them.
Yeah.
And some people just make you feel that way. And so, how does it make others feel being dismissed? It makes them feel unimportant, excluded, unwanted, as if they have nothing valuable to offer, as if the other person has very little interest in them. And it can make them want to just shut down,
Mm-hmm.
like just withdraw. Why even go to the trouble? Avoid you, not contribute. So it does affect and hurt other people when we allow ourselves to be dismissive. And so I started thinking about, what would be the cause of it or the root of it. And I think that it's not all from evil intent. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really think it is. I think some of it can be. I started thinking about three different areas dismissive behavior might spring up from. The first one being just simply arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, um, that person's not smart enough, interesting enough, good looking enough, or significant enough to pay attention to.
Yeah.
That's a pretty arrogant heart on my part if I'm going to treat somebody that way. But it could also just be from aloofness. I'm just indifferent. It's not that I'm trying to dismiss someone, I just don't care enough to be
Yeah.
inclusive, or whatever the opposite word of dismissiveness would
Mm-hmm.
be. I just don't. I don't care enough to care about others. And then the other area I thought was selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's not so much evil intent towards somebody else. It doesn't come from an arrogant heart, but it does reveal that I'm so self absorbed in my own interests and my own life that I can't be bothered with others. Unless,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I need them or I feel like they can do something for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm very selective, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like those can be three different areas that can lead to being dismissive. And before I move on, what would you like to say about that?
Well, I'm just absorbing all that because I hadn't, when we were talking about picking these things, I hadn't really even thought about that. But wow, yeah, it is. It's, you immediately can think of a person or two that has made you feel that way in the past. And what, like a little, just so unimportant and so, I don't know how, I
Small.
don't, yeah, I just feel like it makes me mad. And again, that's a character flaw of my own. Rather than being compassionate towards the person who is being dismissive, I end up being dismissive towards them. But yeah, I'm thinking of just how they talk, 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 talk. And then when it's your turn to talk, they pull out their phone and look at it
Mhm.
or look at their watch or whatever. And like, you want me to listen to you, but you're not going to listen to me. It's rude. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's a rude behavior. So, yeah, tell us how not to be that way.
Okay. Well, based on
Getting
the
my pen out.
based on those three different areas, if it's a matter of arrogance, self-inflated view of yourself causes you to sort of, look down on others and assimilate them into groups. Who's worthy of your time and who's not? Okay, if it's a matter of arrogance, James 4:10, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord. And a lot of this, it's interesting to me, kind of ties back into the critical spirit that you were talking about,
Mm,
because it's that whole elevation of self, and where I think and I perceive other people falling short. And so they're not worthy of my time. So humble yourself, be aware. You mentioned the beam and the speck. Uh, so many people could be looking at me in the same way. And, you don't really bring a lot to the table. But that's not how we treat each other. We treat each other like how God sees us. And
mhm.
so humble yourself if it's a matter of arrogance. If it's a matter of aloofness, sometimes just it's a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't thought about it. I really hadn't given any thought to it. And
Mhm.
so open your heart and let others in. If we're so disinterested in other people, not intentionally, we just haven't put the effort into it. That's a form of dismissiveness. Um, John 15:12 says that we're to love others as I have loved you. And the first part of that is to see others and find them lovable, not because of anything on their part, but because that's how Jesus wants us to see them. So I'm going to be aware of the people all around me. I think about walking into a room, I feel like typically I've got something in my mind that I need to do or accomplish, or I'm agenda driven. When I get to this situation, I need to do this or speak to this person or arrange that. It's like I've got things in my mind I'm trying to make sure I remember to do before I leave. When instead, I should walk into the room and see people. Who's standing here, who's standing there. This is a person worthy of love and attention, and I want to make sure they feel seen, they feel special, they feel refreshed, that I've acknowledged them, that I'm not aloof because I'm just trying to get in there and take care of business. Does that make sense?
I have had to multiple times go apologize to people because I am agenda driven sometimes. And if there's a message I need to give somebody and they're standing in a group of friends and I get to that group and I wait for a break in the conversation, then I say what I need to say to this person and then I leave. And a lot of times I seriously have done this. I've gotten better about it, but I have to go find those people that were in the rest of the group and say, I'm so sorry. I just completely didn't pay any attention to you because I was trying to get a message. And so I know that happens. And I think you can tell the difference between somebody that is completely uninterested in the rest of the people and someone who's just not thinking. But thinking about the kind of people that what you're talking about, walk into a room and look around and see people for people. I'm just thinking about people that I know that when they see you, they make you feel so valuable and so seen. That's a buzzword. I see you. But those are the people that we're drawn to, right? People who love you and people who care about what you care about and want to know what you've been doing, and they ask you about you, not the people who walk past you and dismiss you and make you feel like a little speck on the floor that they can just step on. Who in the world who says they're a Christian, and I hate when people say they call themselves a Christian, but who that is a true follower of Christ is going to treat any living soul with that kind of disregard? And it's just, it's horrible. So yeah, we need to be like Christ, like you said, and see people as a soul valued by God. What is that saying? You'll never look into the face of another person that doesn't matter to God. Something we have to live by.
I think the challenge is that, maybe we can be dismissive just with some, but not everybody, because we're selective.
Yeah.
And there are people that it's just much easier, I'm naturally drawn to, or, I already have a relationship with them or whatever it is. And some other people just maybe take more effort, or I don't know them as well, or I feel awkward around them, or whatever it might be. It can be any number of things. Or I won't know what to say. I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
And
the awkwardness.
Yeah. And so I just gravitate toward the people that I already know. And I know that there's some people that I could go encourage, but it's easier for me to go to them and encourage them. So the challenge is to not be selective, but to see everybody, because that person doesn't know what's going on in your brain. All they know is that you just walked right by them, or that you interrupted them, or that you left a conversation when they came along and started talking. That's all they know. And so the selfishness one, if it's selfishness that can be at the root of it, you're so self-absorbed you can't be bothered with others. Philippians 2 verse 3 reminds us to consider others as more important than ourselves. And I just think that part of that is going to have to be take a step back, slow down. I mean, what is going to be lost and taking the time and caring enough to pause and look somebody in the eyes and have a conversation, or acknowledge what they've said, acknowledge what they've done. there are any number of things that we can do to counteract anyone feeling dismissed or overlooked or whatever it might be. So, I think the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, like I said, you told me to pick out one or two, I forget how you worded it, like bad attitudes that can be hurtful to others. And I was kind of skimming through them. Felt like a lot of them, first of all, felt under the same category of the ones that you're going to talk about, because it's kind of a big umbrella.
Yeah.
And secondly, this one just struck me because it kind of hurt when I started thinking about it. And I realized that I've been guilty of this with, sometimes I'm aware of it. Sometimes I probably am intentionally avoiding someone when I shouldn't be, but after reading how it manifests itself, I realized that I have been guilty about this, and I've certainly felt it.
Yeah.
And I never want to be responsible for somebody else feeling it.
Yeah.
It's so easy to slight someone without realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's easy to do it and mean it.
Yeah.
Easily. Like,
yeah. Oh, we're good at it.
Yeah. But while you were talking, I was also thinking about how do we dismiss people as being interested in the gospel? Because I think that's something that's easy for me to do. I think, oh, that they're not the type of person that wants to know about God. How many times have we seen results from a person that you hear someone say, I never would have thought they would have wanted to know about the truth. And that's not our judgment call to make. And I know that I do that. So I've got to be more careful not necessarily be dismissive of them as a person or personality, but be dismissive of what I perceive as their desire for spiritual things, because there's just no way for me to know their heart. It's my job to plant the seed to everyone and not dismiss anyone as a soul.
Well, and we probably do it to some extent demographically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying I feel this way. I'm not really interested in young people. What do they have to offer? They're all crazy. Or I'm not really interested in old people. They have no idea what's going on in this world.
Yeah.
I'm not interested, I'm just, as I walk by, I just might go, hey, how you doing? Keep going. So we probably do that to some extent also. Yeah. Without realizing it.
So be more mindful.
Yes. Yes.
Good. Is that all?
That's all.
Okay. My last one is disdain. And this is a pet peeve of mine. We've talked about doing a pet peeve episode, but we don't want to do that because it sounds so petty and not
peevy.
Positive and peevy, not encouraging. And we want to be encouraging, but this is something that bothers me when I see it in myself, when I see it in other people. What's a synonym for disdain that you think of? Maybe a better word for it? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, really. I don't know. I can't think
Well,
of one.
Scorn is one.
Yeah,
when you're scornful of someone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a definition: a feeling of contempt for someone or something regarded as unworthy or inferior. So this is kind of similar to what you've been talking about, because we can be dismissive and scornful. We might be dismissive for a different reason, but disdain is something that you feel. If it's an unchecked heart emotion, then it leads to you treating people dismissively or scornfully, disrespectfully, mocking them. There's several passages, Proverbs 3:34, just kind of not quoting, but summarizing. It says basically that God scoffs at scoffers, but he gives grace to the afflicted. James 4:6, he's opposed to the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And Proverbs 21:4 says basically that haughty eyes and a proud heart is sin. So I was trying to think of different areas in life that we see disdain for other people. And like you were just talking about, demographically is a big one. I just wrote down generationally. And because I got to thinking one day, what good could be accomplished if we would stop, if as younger people, we would stop being scornful of the things that older people do traditionally, or the way they've always done it. We are so scornful of it because don't they know that there's a better way of doing that now? Don't they know they can do it quicker this way? Don't they know this, whatever? But I think that the younger tend to not think about there's a reason why they do it that way, because it works. But then again, on the other hand, if older people are, why do they always have to come up with something different? Why do they always have to think of it? We do it this way for a reason. So there's a lot of generational scorn, I think, that goes on that I see politically. Just in the last couple of days, there have been things that, I feel like it doesn't matter what good one side or the other does, it's going to be perceived scornfully because it comes from one side or the other. Has nothing necessarily to do with the real value of it. It's just because we're scornful of it, we're disdainful of it. Even the differences between an introvert and an extrovert, we tend to look down our noses at someone who, me, I think back on that picture that I saw of myself looking at another person, me, the introvert, her, the extrovert. And oh, it was such a look in the mirror to see my face looking at someone. And I know how I felt about her. This was when I was a teenager, but eye-opening to see what scorn looks like on my face. It was very convicting. Years ago, probably it's probably been at least 12 or 13 years ago, I posted something on Facebook and just said something about the fact that I felt like disdain has no place in the heart of a Christian. And I said, feel free to disagree with me. So several people, had a comment, not necessarily, I didn't feel like any of them. In fact, a couple of them were good friends. Someone said, is it possible to feel disdain but not treat someone disdainfully? What do you think about that?
I don't think that's loving others as Jesus loves.
Right. That's kind of how
I
I
think that
felt. It's
when
being
you
two-faced.
when you say it means scorn, contempt, mockery, none of those have any business in our heart toward mankind.
Mm-hmm.
When we
Yeah.
read the rest of scripture and how God wants us to love and how that's how we're identified as his disciples.
Yeah. I felt that way too. And I think the way I responded was, and I know that it was a guy who we laugh a lot together because we have the same sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
which sarcasm can play a part. So he was asking, well, if I feel this way inside, but I don't treat them that way, is that wrong? And I said basically that I think that you might be encouraging with your mouth, but if your heart is not backing it up, if you're really not feeling it, if you're not aligning yourself with God when you do
1
that.
Corinthians 13.
Yeah. So no, I think that it's not possible to really treat them one way and be feeling the other because it's not honest. It's dishonest.
Yeah. How easy it is for us to pat ourselves on the back when we do that, though.
Yeah.
They'll never know that I think they're an idiot.
Right.
When really, that's a big, you need a heart check
Yeah.
moment. You need to not be
Exactly.
feeling that way toward them in the first place.
Mm-hmm. What is that? If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I think there's a step beyond that. If you can't say something nice, then you're the one with the problem
Yeah.
because you should always be able to find something.
Check your heart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Someone else in that same post said, how do you show disapproval for things that are wrong without showing disdain? Which I think could be a whole topic on a podcast is how do you show disapproval?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you can be so damaging in the way that you show disapproval. What you're trying to do is encourage someone to live right, but all you're doing is looking down your nose, or if that's how they perceive, then that's real. John is always saying perception is often reality. Even though, how many times in your marriage do you say, well, you took it that way, but that's not how I meant it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if they took it that way. And I mean, they bear responsibility too, but I think it really does matter how we show things.
Others feel.
Yeah. So how I had responded was, how did Jesus show disapproval? And of course, he showed anger to the Pharisees. He called them blind guides and a brood of vipers and all that. But, there was some very obvious fruit that came from the Pharisees. And also, Jesus, I think we can't always say we can respond exactly like Jesus because he had knowledge that we don't have. So think we have to be careful with that. But even thinking about how John, the Apostle John, or John the Baptist responded to Herod, saying it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. He was just matter of fact about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can be matter of fact about showing disapproval without showing disdain or scorn. Someone else said that she thought it was not an attitude, but an emotion. But I still think either way, you can control it, and you've got to control it when you put on the things that we talk about all the time in Colossians 3. Um, being disdainful, I think, shows that we have just an elevated sense of ourself. This is kind of like what you're talking about, being dismissive, which is the complete opposite of having humility, right? Because the isn't the definition of meekness or humility having a proper sense of ourselves, not necessarily knocking ourselves or putting ourselves down. That's not humility. It's just having the proper attitude about who we are and what we are to the Lord.
And we should be going out of our way to honor others
Mm-hmm.
and make
Exactly.
them feel respected.
Yeah. And practice that and learn how to be that way. But if we are scornful towards someone else, it just means that we haven't looked at ourselves in the mirror to see our own shortcomings and faults. We're either that or we're just setting those aside and over, not thinking about that. This is something completely separate. Yes, I may have a problem with honesty, but they right now are having a problem with this and this and this. Psalm 1, verse 1, how blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. That imagery of sitting in the seat of a scoffer, it makes me think of the two little men in the Muppets.
Yeah, the old guys in
I
the
can't remember
balcony.
their names,
Mm-hmm.
but they just sit up there and heckle and they criticize and they, make fun of. And I think of them sitting in their little seats up in their box seat.
Mm-hmm.
But really the picture of someone that sits in the seat of scoffers, it's like you're putting yourself up here on this level and looking down at others and just
Mm-hmm.
picking apart. And that just I have a hard time being around people that are disdainful of others, and I just don't want any part of it. I know I've been that way, but I try really hard not to be. What are some marks of the scornful people? Being critical, poking fun, mocking, physical manifestations that you see, like you mentioned, the eye rolls and the sighs and there's a meme that's gone around that it says it's got a picture of a woman and she's going, and the little caption under it says, somewhere out there, someone is looking at your Facebook post like this, like with, ooh, or just, you know, if you're listening, you can't see my face, but you can probably imagine it. It's like, they're so stupid. I can't believe they're saying that. And I think that about us all the time. I think about this podcast. There's people out there I know that look at us with that eye roll, with that deep sigh. And okay, I know it's going to happen because we're people. People have their opinions about what we do, and that's okay. Maybe we're not for them. They can go and find a different podcast and listen to, or they can do their own, as we were saying earlier. But it's not often a face to face. It's just more often, I think, it's when you're home. Maybe you're talking to your husband or you're just thinking to yourself. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can just feel myself, my lip is curling. Like I'm just sitting there. And, that's just pretty scornful behavior. So I think we have to guard our hearts against this disdain. Uh, I think there's some opposites here. Am I critical or compassionate? Am I judgmental or am I welcoming? Am I doubtful about someone or am I full of praise to them? Am I looking for bad or looking for good? Am I nitpicking or am I supportive? So you have thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. One of the groups that I thought about when you were mentioning, different areas that we might struggle with it is I thought about the needy. We can allow our hearts to become calloused or disdainful toward the needy, whether it's physical, we might think, well, they're the ones that landed themselves in this situation in the first place, or
Yeah.
somebody's
You made your
emotionally
bed.
needy or spiritually needy. Oh, they're always wanting attention. They're always seeking attention, and so we become scornful and disdainful toward them instead of compassionate.
Yeah.
And how many of these things does it go back to replacing with compassion?
Mm.
um, we've talked about forgiveness before, and Jesus uses the illustration to show the reason somebody wasn't willing to be forgiving is because he lacked compassion.
Yeah.
And so when our hearts are empty of that, it can, all these things that we've talked about, in this episode, it can lead to those attributes.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought about how it leads to other things. If we allow disdain for another human being to take root in our heart, how often does that lead to gossip about that person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vindictiveness, resentment, bitterness, dismissiveness.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to take root and like these black tentacles just
Yeah.
going
That
out
root
and
of
leading us
bitterness.
to act. I think it shows up on our face no matter how well we think we're hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads us to act out in other ways
Yeah.
if we allow it to. And then the only other thing I wanted to say about it was I just figured I'd call myself out. The reason we're having this episode is because you called me out on it.
I did?
Yes, remember? I was
No.
having a conversation with you about a situation where we're in the middle of something and there's been a lot of negative remarks that have been made, a lot of criticism that's been verbalized. And I was saying it just hurts my heart to see the people working so hard being criticized and they're being hurt. And it's making me mad. And I want to just like shake some people and I want to blah, blah, blah. I'm like ranting, you know. And you said, yeah, the challenge in that situation is to not become disdainful ourselves toward them, isn't it?
I don't remember saying that. Sorry.
Yes, you did. And I was like,
But if I did, and I'm sure I did, if you say I did, it's
you definitely did.
because I have a problem with that, because that's where I tend to go when someone makes me mad. It makes me that way.
But you were right. You were so right. And I was feeling every bit of it. You know, it wasn't righteous indignation. In my mind, I called it that. But the way I was speaking, you know, and it doesn't matter. I don't have to give names, I don't have to give details. But if I'm so worked up about somebody else's bad behavior that I put myself in God's place in the seat of judgment and I start looking down on them or viewing them disdainfully, then that's become my problem.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of what Tammy Roberts said years and years ago at camp. She was serving as a counselor and she said,
This is great.
I was having a bad attitude about the girls having a bad attitude, thereby becoming a girl with a bad attitude or something like that. I forget how she said it, but it was hilarious. And that's exactly what had happened. You know, I had just worked myself up into so frustrated. You know, like, what's the matter with these people? And I can feel the expression on my face. I can feel the self-righteousness in my heart. And you said, yeah, the challenge is that in those situations we don't become disdainful toward them, isn't it? And I was like, oh.
Okay.
Yes, you are
We can
right.
launch into
Yes.
that's what friends are for, right? But
I was not the least bit. It did not bother me in the least. It was,
okay.
I needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. I was grateful that you said that.
Well, it's the impatient people make me so impatient. So,
Exactly.
and it was actually in a class that Neil was teaching that I remember coming to that conclusion, because he asked, what makes you impatient? I still remember it was at Bear Valley. And I was frustrated about somebody being impatient. And I realized I'm being impatient about an impatient person. What does that mean about me? You know, so
Yeah.
it's just usually the things, there's a quote that says, what paineth thee in others in thine own self may be. So, usually the things that we are bothered the most by are things that we struggle with ourselves.
So
And
true.
here we are. That's why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, you're right. This has not been very uplifting. I'm tired of it.
As long as you're not dismissive or
That's
disdainful or
right.
critical of it, okay?
Ugh.
Just real quick, we'll wrap it up because I know we're waxing long again. How do I feel around someone who shows scorn? I feel very guarded and nervous, and I feel less than, and I'm annoyed, to be honest. So I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to make people feel that way around me. Something that always has impressed me or struck me is how was Paul towards sin? Was he scornful of it? What's he doing?
Somebody's at your door.
Did John come in?
No, there was
Someone's at the
whoever
outside
it
door?
was. Yeah, whoever right there, whichever door that is.
That door is the outside door.
Okay, the other door. Somebody was
Okay,
just
that's
standing at that
John.
window. Oh, okay. Sorry
He's
to
probably
interrupt. Carry on.
okay. I'm going to be scornful of John if he tries to interrupt. He's here in the house and I can hear him in the
He's
kitchen.
probably peeking in like, are you still going?
Yes. Yeah, probably that is exactly what he's doing. So Paul, this has always been striking to me in Philippians 3. He wept about sin rather than being scornful about it or being, I'm sure it made him angry at times too, but he wept about it. Philippians 3:18 talks about it. Then I think, do my words draw others to Christ or do they repel others from Christ? And has anyone ever been changed in a positive way by my scorn? No, it only affects, it's a heart disease that's affecting me, discouraging others that see it in me, hear it in me. So I can't be that way. The bottom line is Philippians 2:3, I think, with humility of mind, and you brought this up, regard others as more important than yourselves, because that's the mind of Christ that we're to have. So I think that could be applied to every single one of the ones that we've talked about today, plus any other heart disease. Think about Wendell Winkler's book, Heart Diseases and Their Cure. Such a good one.
Paul
So,
not only wept over their sins, but he wept over having to call him out on it.
yeah,
It grieved him to bring grief to them by having to point something out. That's how tenderhearted he was about it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. Do we feel sufficiently stepped on? Hopefully it is an encouraging thing to realize problems that we need to change in ourselves. And that's what today was like for me. I needed this. So thanks for our audience for being part of our therapy session between you and me, which often is what becomes. So,
I don't know how everybody else is feeling, but we're good.
yeah. Okay. So now do you have something good for me?
You're going to like this one. You know how we like our scripture writing opportunities. And I've mentioned on here before the ruffled mango. They do, theirs is a little bit different. I love all the different styles. They do monthly themes. And we've mentioned before that they've also added a podcast. So, podcast listeners, if you enjoy a good podcast, you'll have to go check them out. I think they've done two. Theirs is every other week. Okay. So, twice a month, they're having a podcast about their scripture writing themes. So, January's was Unshaken. Well, they've added something new. I don't know if you saw this or not, but they've added something new. It is a playlist of songs that they have put
to go
together.
Along with the theme.
You can find it on Spotify or Amazon Music to go along with that month's theme. So if you're writing down that verse, theirs are a little bit shorter than yours. I think it's like maybe a verse or two. So you can do both. If you're writing down that verse for that theme, and then you can listen to this playlist throughout the day to keep recalling it. So I pulled up the one for this month and on Unshaken, there were 23 songs that they have taken the trouble to put together. And some are older, some are new. They're all beautiful. And so they're going to do that for every month. And you can just download it and listen to it. And so February's theme, their scripture writing theme is the goodness of God. So I cannot, oh man, I cannot wait. Yeah, to download that playlist and listen to it. So I thought that was really cool and wanted everybody to know about it and check it out.
That's two of my love languages, scripture writing and music.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yep. I can't wait I have not seen that. So as soon as we get off, I'm going to go check it out.
Yep.
Okay. Mine is a weird one, but it's something that I found that brought back lots of memories. It's a piece of paper, but it's going to be shared differently. So when the boys were growing up, when they were teenagers, I had this piece of paper in a little drawer sitting next to the table. And when we had dinner, it's life's little lessons. You can see life's little lessons. And it's an article written by a man named Jerry Carmichael. I don't know who he is, but there are 20 different topics and they're just little short things. One of them is never bore people with tales of your own greatness. Another one is, uh, please do not buy into the American myth that true happiness and inner peace is the result of more things. So they're just little short statements. And so when the time, it depends on timing, but if you've got teenagers at home and you still eat dinner together, I hope that sometimes you eat dinner together. It's hard to do these days. Pull this out. Pick one of the numbers to talk about. This is great. Never laugh loudly and tell inappropriate jokes at somber occasions, Marla. But these were awesome when the boys were growing up. We had some of the best conversations around the dinner table when we would have a conversation starter like this. And like something like that would make us laugh because then it would lead John to tell a story about when somebody did something inappropriate at a bad time. And we'd laugh and then we'd have an opportunity to talk about it. So I'm going to post these next week. I'll just put it as an article or put it in the files or something in the group, but use it. I mean, you can use it however you want to, but I just kept it, like I said, close to the dinner table. And when we were feeling like the boys were feeling like conversation's a good thing, sometimes, you have to read the room. And if everybody's in a hurry, if everybody's grumpy, you can't really do it. But sometimes you have opportunities to talk as a family. And it was a great time. I have great memories of doing this with our kids.
Boys were always more chatty at night.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was to delay, actual bedtime. But that carried on even and through beyond school, that college years, that's when they wanted to talk was late at night. And so maybe if you have nighttime family devotionals before everybody goes to bed, that'd be a good time to bring something up like that too.
Yeah. I almost cried when I found this because I thought I had lost it and I had never reproduced it. And it's still got my little check marks on it. Yes, we've covered that one. We talked about this one. There's actually that one, never laugh loudly, tell inappropriate jokes at somber occasions. I have 2 check marks by, so we must have covered that twice. And there's some really serious ones and some hard ones. And then there's some, not as much. So read the room, figure out what's, pay attention to timing, but it was just really good for our family. So you have anything else?
Oh, no.
We've had quite enough. I think this has been another long episode.
I think so,
and we intended it to be short. Why do we always do that? There's a lot to say, but thank you to everyone who is still listening. I apologize for the length of this. Hopefully it will be something that will be helpful. It has very much been helpful for me just to process out loud, to talk to you and to know that you'll handle the things that I say with kindness and tell me. I was thinking this last week when preparing the lesson that you're the kind of friend that will tell me kindly, maybe not right that moment, but it'll come around later if there's something that I need to do differently or think differently about. And we need those kinds of friends. And thank you for being that kind of friend. And I hope that those in the group will consider that we need the kind of friends that will be mirrors of the Word of God. And you are that for me. So.
Well, I'm convicted after, and conviction feels good. In the moment, maybe not so much, but when you're reminded of something and you're like, oh yeah, we need to work on this, and to have, the honesty to have that kind of conversation, I know that I can ask you to pray about that for me so that I'm not carrying this by myself and it only lasts for a couple of days.
Yeah. We'll do it together.
Yeah. But if we're praying for each other, if somebody listening to us wants prayers in a specific area, maybe we don't mention this enough, but that's part of what that group is all about. We welcome your thoughts. We welcome your prayer requests. We're here for each other and to encourage each other and are happy to pray for each other.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And with that, I feel my internet getting shaky. It's cloudy. I've been paranoid. It's going to quit on us. But with that, until next time.
Keep looking up.